So we get a lot of calls from out-of-state buyers asking about Scottsdale. What's it like to live there? What are some of the pros and cons? What should they do when they get here? Is Scottsdale expensive? Is Scottsdale still going up in price? Is Scottsdale a good place to live? A lot of these questions just depend on your lifestyle, but the thing I will tell you today, we're going to go over the pros and the cons of living in Scottsdale. Not every place is great all the time, and a lot of people move here and they end up moving away. So let's talk today about the pros and cons of living in Scottsdale. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the pros. Number one thing is you have to realize that not all Scottsdale is the same, just like any major city in the United States. So the one thing you have to keep in mind when we talk Scottsdale, we're talking general. There's a big difference between South Scottsdale and North Scottsdale, and overall Scottsdale is a really small city. Scottsdale is about 30 miles north to south, and it's only about 14 miles wide. There's a big difference, a huge difference between South Scottsdale, which is the original Scottsdale area, and North Scottsdale. So let's go over a list of the pros and cons of living in Scottsdale, starting with the pros. Well, number one, it's a beautiful and clean city. Scottsdale spends a lot of time keeping things clean, and they even have ordinances on people keeping their yards weed-free. They spend a lot of time cleaning the streets. They're very strict about their building codes and all their buildings, and how in North Scottsdale, for example, the buildings have to fit into the scenery so they don't stand out. In other words, they have specific paint colors that you have to paint the buildings. Right now, the current fight is in South Scottsdale, where people want more progress. They want to take away the old town theme, and all the developers want to build high rises. The one thing people don't love about high rises here is they don't want their views of the mountains to be taken away. Living in Scottsdale, we don't have an ocean, and a lot of the beauty in Scottsdale is in the mountain ranges and the beautiful skies. So let's go over the pros to living in Scottsdale. Well, number one, over the past few years, more people have found Scottsdale, especially after COVID. We have great tourism that happens year-round, and we have a lot of things to do here. Number one, it's a beautiful city. There's pride of ownership in Scottsdale, and Scottsdale spends a lot of time and money keeping the city clean. They even have ordinances on people's yards that if people let their weeds grow, you can report it to the city and they will go out and put a notice on the people's door. Scottsdale is very sensitive to tourism because tourism brings a lot of money to the city of Scottsdale, so they really care about their city. They bring in a lot of big events like the TPC Golf, Barrett-Jackson Car Auction, the Super Bowl, other bowl games. There's just a lot of things that happen in Arizona, and many of those things include Scottsdale. Next thing is Scottsdale keeps improving the city so you don't have to. When people come here and they buy a property, or when they're looking at property and maybe their property needs some work, I tell them not to get overly excited. I said, don't worry about your property as much. They all, of course, ask about their property values, but I said the one thing that Scottsdale does is they keep improving the city so you don't have to improve it. In other words, Scottsdale continues to strive to make the city a better place to live and work. The next thing, Scottsdale has some of the best dining options in the state of Arizona and some of the best restaurants in the United States. It just depends on what your culinary options are and what type of food you like. Scottsdale even has 3 culinary schools in the city. A lot of these chefs go off and open their own restaurants. We have a lot of Michelin-rated chefs here, and overall the quality of food in Scottsdale is amazing. Every time my brother comes up from Tucson, he's overwhelmed by the number of great restaurants we have, versus when we go to Tucson, we probably have 2 or 3 options to choose from, places that we would really like to go. The advantage too in Scottsdale with food is there's a lot of options. Number one, there's healthy options in a lot of places. There's a lot of little cafes, and there are affordable options in Scottsdale. You just got to know where to go. The other thing about dining in Scottsdale is there's a lot of fine dining where you can get some beautiful views, sit out on the patios. Patios here are a huge thing. We don't have a lot of mosquitoes because of the dry weather, so you're going to see a lot of people wanting to sit outside to eat, especially since the climate is very mild and people love sitting outside. fresh air, views, and just seeing the activities in and around the restaurants. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the weather. Of course, a lot of people, or most people, live here because of the weather. Now, summers are miserable, and I will say I don't love living through summer here, especially June through September. But most of the year, you have sunshine, you have moderate temperatures, and it just makes everything a little easier to live. You never have to worry about waking up and scraping off your windshield. You don't have a lot of bugs. You don't have a lot of things that you would deal with in some of these other climates, including even rain. A lot of people with their cars, they wash their cars here, but their cars look great for years and years and years, and you don't have to worry about your car rusting out. If I was going to buy a used car and move back to Chicago, I would definitely be buying a car from Arizona because they just hold up a whole lot better. So the next thing we have that's great in Scottsdale are some of the top-rated resorts in the United States. Scottsdale is known for luxury resorts, and some of these facilities are beautiful. The great thing about it is even the local residents can go and take a staycation, stay in Arizona, and take their family to a resort for a couple days instead of driving out of state for a vacation. The other thing in Arizona we have a lot of different climates. So you can drive a couple hours from the greater Phoenix area and be in the mountain ranges and go skiing in the winter and come back down to the valley and go golfing in the afternoon. That's one thing people forget about when they move here. They think it's just always hot. Next thing we have here is a lot of health-minded individuals. There's nothing I like better than seeing people in their 70s out walking and riding their bikes every day. Having great weather just makes you feel better overall, and it makes you want to get out and take care of yourself. There's a lot of health-oriented things here. There's med spas. There's the Mayo Clinic. We have a lot of good health care here for people. It's something that's really helpful. We have a lot of retirees that have second homes out here or live here full time. Therefore, we have a lot of health care here to accommodate them. The next thing here, overall, it's pretty easy to get around in Scottsdale. Again, Scottsdale is very narrow and tall, I would say. I mean, it's kind of like a sliver, so to speak. But it's fairly easy to get from South Scottsdale to North Scottsdale without getting on the freeway, though it will take you a lot longer. Arizona's built some nice freeways, and even though they are getting filled up, there's still a lot of options for getting from South Scottsdale to North Scottsdale. And the thing about Scottsdale is there's so many different types of stores, restaurants, shopping, and everything that it's easy within 10 or 15-minute drive to pretty much get whatever you want. That's another thing that's really popular here. Scottsdale with Fashion Square Mall, the Kierland Commons area has some of the best shopping in the state of Arizona. You go into stores in Fashion Square Mall and you're going to have a lot of high-end luxury stores. Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Rolex. There's just a lot of really popular stores in Scottsdale where people can do luxury shopping, and there's also a lot of luxury boutique stores. So there's just a lot of great things that you can do in Scottsdale. And a lot of times we have people or couples, maybe the gals go shopping during the day and the guys go out and play a round of golf. It just makes for a lot of fun. There's just a lot of things that you can do during the day, including shopping. And that's one thing that's really popular, especially in the summer when it's really hot out. And the last thing we want to talk about are the great events that are going on in Scottsdale all the time. In the spring, we have pro baseball spring training. So we have games going on throughout the valley, including Scottsdale. We have venues for concerts. We have biking trails, hiking trails, walking trails, just about everything you can think of. In the winter months, we're going to have the TPC golf tournament every year. Every couple years, we'll have a Super Bowl. We'll have college bowl games going on. We're going to have the Barrett-Jackson car auction. We're going to have some horse shows like the Arabian Horse Show. And another great thing we have here are some great rafting and boating options. So now let's get into some of the cons. That's what people really seem to want to hear about. And number one on that list is definitely the weather. June through September is as hot as HELL here. I mean, it's really hot. When you go out and take a drive, try rolling your window down and you're going to feel a hot oven breeze coming into your face. Take a boat ride in the summer and you're going to feel so hot you can't wait to jump in that water, and you almost can't breathe from that hot air blowing into your mouth. Summers are really hot here. The one thing that I had to learn moving from Chicago was I had to change my vacation time from in Chicago going in the winter on vacation to here going on vacation in the summer. One of the great advantages though is California is only a 1 to 2 hour ride away, and I have family over there, so I can go over and hit the beaches in California, or in a couple hours I can go up into Flagstaff in the mountain areas and I can go hiking and do a lot of things up there. So you have to be aware of the fact that it's going to be really hot here in the summer, and summer is not the best time for most people to come here. Now, I will say the local residents don't mind it because it's not as busy in the summer, and they can get great deals, and everything is just about half off as far as golfing, resorts. The next thing we want to talk about is tourism. Scottsdale is on the map. If you tell somebody you're from Phoenix, may or may not know where you're from, but if you tell people you're from Scottsdale, Arizona, you're definitely going to be recognized. Now, when we're having a lot of tourism here, we're also having a lot of car accidents because the snowbirds and people don't know where they're going. And then the residents are driving really fast and the other people are driving slow because they don't know where they're going. And they're most likely on vacation and they're not in a hurry. We see more fender benders during the winter months here than any other time of the year. I think they should change that. But overall, tourism, it's very busy here in the winter and the local residents definitely don't like it. It's like an invasion. And when people come here, they feel entitled because they're on vacation and they don't always respect the local people and the local customs and culture, so to speak, and they sometimes get very pushy. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is the fact that Scottsdale is definitely not the same everywhere. South Scottsdale is the original Scottsdale area, and now it's one of the big party zones in Scottsdale. If you're going to come into South Scottsdale and look at buying a home, it would be a starter home in Scottsdale, because as you go from the south, most of the time from the south to the north, it's going to get more expensive because the homes are newer. And North Scottsdale is apples and oranges to South Scottsdale. We have the little downtown area called Old Town where we have a lot of older little businesses, really fun area to be. And then they built a big bar and restaurant center. Now, the people in North Scottsdale probably don't even know the bars and restaurants, or I would say more likely the bars exist. They don't come down to South Scottsdale to party and go to the bars because most of the people going into those places are probably 30 years and under. It's a wild scene down there. You're going to see golf carts driving up and down the roads, hauling people from bar to bar. It's loud, obnoxious, and a lot of people are going to be scantily dressed, and it's a battle of the egos. The girls are out trying to outdo each other, and the guys are trying to outdo each other. On top of that, you're going to see the $100,000 millionaires out there every single weekend, partying it up and down, staying out all night and walking up and down the streets. The next day, you may see some walk of shames walking down the streets because they didn't make it home that night. So the other con about living down in Old Town is the fact that more Airbnbs are down in Old Town Scottsdale than anywhere else. So if you came into Old Town Scottsdale and you wanted to buy a home, most likely you could have an Airbnb or 2 or 3 or 4 in your neighborhood. Now, Scottsdale is doing a lot right now to cut back on the Airbnbs, but people in South Scottsdale, the local residents, they hate it. So if you're an Airbnb person, we have a lot of people coming in to party, especially in Old Town. That's why they get an Airbnb. You get bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. You get a ton of people coming to party in Old Town, and they're going to be staying in Airbnbs in South Scottsdale and Old Town. If you're going to be a resident there, you're not going to love it. Now, in North Scottsdale, it's a completely different area, especially north of the 101 freeway. What's the cons of North Scottsdale? It's remote. Everywhere you will go up there, you have to drive. Some places you'd have to probably, if you were at the far north end of Scottsdale, you'd have to go to the stores and load up for like a month of supplies. Now, it's beautiful up there. It's desert, it's mountainous. It's really as beautiful as a desert could get when you're living up there, but you are going to have to drive everywhere. And if you love fine dining, it's a lot harder to get to fine dining up there because there's very few restaurants up in North Scottsdale. For me personally, I would have a hard time living up in North Scottsdale because I came from Chicago and I'm used to things being really close and easy to get to. And I don't love jumping in my car and driving 15 minutes just to go to the grocery store. So if you're thinking of moving out here and moving to North Scottsdale, you have to keep in mind that you're going to be driving a lot more, especially if you want to go to the shopping centers. You're going to have limited grocery stores, limited restaurants, and limited things to do up there. Now, the hiking and everything is great. The scenery is amazing, but you're just going to have to drive. I was up there a few weeks ago and I thought I was going to run out of gas, and I was actually nervous that I had to drive 10 extra miles to go to the gas station from where I was at. Now, in North Scottsdale, another con to living up there, wildlife. Down in South Scottsdale, you're rarely ever going to see a rattlesnake. You will see some coyotes, but you don't see a lot of wildlife in South Scottsdale. It's too established. But if you go and buy a home in North Scottsdale, more remote and everything, you're definitely going to have to watch out every morning for snakes, rattlesnakes. You're going to have coyotes. You're going to have bobcats. You're going to have scorpions, more scorpions, Scottsdale's north area. And the last con to living in Scottsdale, it's cold in the winter. When I grew up, I always spent my winters from Chicago. I'd go down to Florida. It was warm, humid, temperature was moderate, and I didn't know the difference between a humid climate and a dry climate. Well, I can tell you right now, I don't know if I could ever live in Florida after living here, but winters in Arizona are cold, especially for the residents. We just came off 115-degree summer, and now we're going down into the 30s, high 30s, 40s at night in January, February. We're cold. So a lot of people come out here thinking, I got to have a swimming pool. I want to go swimming. Arizona residents are not going in their swimming pool in the winter. Really, the swimming pool time is not much different than it is in Chicago during the summer. People quit going in their pools as soon as it starts cooling down. And a lot of people do not have a heater on their pool. And heating a pool in Arizona, in Scottsdale, could cost you up to $1,000 a month. So a pool is a great thing to have. It's great to look at, and it's fun to go in the summer. But a lot of people are probably not going to really want a pool or need a pool after they move here, because most likely half the year they're not even going to be using the pool. So these are some of the things that are the pros and cons of living in Scottsdale. Scottsdale is an amazing city. If we went and numbered them out, you're definitely going to have a lot more pros than cons of living in Scottsdale. And if you wanted to save money, you could live in Phoenix bordering Scottsdale and be close to a lot of things Scottsdale has to offer. And there are areas of Phoenix where people come into Scottsdale all the time to take advantage of the restaurants, the shopping, and other things. So thanks for tuning in today. If you need any help with real estate, reach out to us. Our contact information is in the description down below. We help a lot of people relocate here from other states. And again, I moved out here from Chicago, and I've been loving it ever since. Have a great day.